In this video, I want to show you how to draw a top-down fantasy farm map. Farms are a great place to start learning how to draw these top-down style of maps. They're nice and simple, but have enough variety to make for a super interesting looking map illustration. The real trick to drawing maps is to start by planning it out with a pencil. Sketching out your farm first is great because you can focus on the layout, and if something doesn't feel right or look that good, it's easy to just erase the pencils and try again. Once the pencils are all planned out, then I can move on to inking it with micron pens. I'll explain that detail a little more later in the video. Right now I'm sketching out a really simple farmhouse and barn. These are for a stretch goal postcard for my recent Kickstarter, Dragontown in the Darkness Below. The barn is just a big room with a little pin that's attached to it for the giant stag beetle helpers. And the farmhouse has just a few rooms and some stairs going up to a loft. The area surrounding the farm is filled with these apple trees that actually don't have any fruit on them, so they're just kind of these bare apple trees. You can see that I'm being really loose and scratchy with the pencils. They don't have to be perfect, just enough that I can see what I'm going to be inking on top of later on. Now that I think about it, this is going to be a cool one-shot postcard, but because it's an apple farm, this illustration isn't giving the full farm picture. So I'm going to bust out another sheet of paper and show you how to draw some more farm elements that you can use on your own map. First, let's talk about these buildings. They're basically like any other top-down building illustration, and I like to draw them with double lines for the walls, almost like the walls have been cross-sectioned off or something. And I like to leave little spaces where the doors can go. Sometimes they're open, sometimes they're shut, sometimes they're filled in. Maybe if I have a locked door, I like to fill it in. And then you can go ahead and add whatever sort of details you want for the inside of the buildings. Basically, think of it like you're drawing a little blueprint or a floor plan map. If you aren't concerned with the interior layout of the building, just draw the roof. I like to make the outline a little bit thicker and then add the roof details like shingles. A lot of times I just do a bunch of parallel lines to show the slope of the roof. And those I do with a thinner line than the outline of the actual building. Fences are super easy and a great way to add details around your buildings. Just draw a line of evenly spaced circles that are the posts and then connect them with singular lines to complete the fence. You can add gates just like you would add doors to a building. Now the fun part, we got all the crops. So the way to make a farm really look like a farm is to have a bunch of plants that look like they've been intentionally planted. So I think the best way to illustrate a farm is to have several plots of crops, like sections that have a bunch of parallel lines of the crops inside them. And then each plot can have those parallel lines going in sort of different angles. This map by John Stevenson is a great example. I love how each plot is divided by some trees or one of the paths going around this little farm town. So keeping that in mind, let's go over how to actually draw some of these crops. I like to keep my map illustrations really simple and representational. I'll just be repeating little icons to achieve the look of the crop just to indicate what this is. The first of these is the squiggly, clumpy lines with little dirt dots in the middle. This is how I represent tilled soil, like a field that is ready to be planted with crops. Next up is something like a wheat field. This kind of crop isn't planted in rows. It's like an entire plot is taken up by all of this wheat. So I'm just outlining the entire plot with little dashed lines and then filling in the center with more little dashed lines. This is an easy way to get a field full of plants look. Like it would be difficult to find your way through this section, like to actually physically walk through these plants, right? Next is a generic row of plants. This could represent any sort of green leafy crop. I've sort of randomly divided these rows, and I think it would probably look better if each of the rows was one solid section of these angled lines. I've put little dots on the inside. I guess I was kind of thinking maybe these were like berry bushes or something, but you could absolutely just add more leafy V shapes on the inside of these rows if you prefer that kind of more leafy texture. Next, we have some sort of melons or cabbages, just rows of big round vegetables with leafy stems. Sometimes it's fun to experiment and try making up new or different looking icons like this. And I think that's a really good reason to try drawing this stuff on a separate sheet of paper. Figure out your icons by drawing a couple of rows before committing to your final map illustration. Next up, we've got trees. My favorite way to draw top-down trees are these little cloud-like squiggly circles. You can add extra leaves in the middle. Just make sure that the squiggle bumps are pointing in the same direction as the outline bumps, if that makes sense. And it's easy to turn these standard looking trees into an apple tree by adding a few little dots. Super simple, super fun to draw. Now let's say you want to draw a clump of trees. This is super fun too. I start by just penciling out a bunch of circles that overlap each other. Then I just draw the cloud shapes like they're running into each other. They overlap a little bit, but no single tree ever gets fully closed off. You can use the extra little squiggle bump details to imply more of the interior roundness without actually closing in the entire shape. And if you want a more pine-like tree, use sharper angles, little V's instead of little U's, and all of the same rules apply for clumping the trees together. Now let's talk animals. If you're drawing a farm, there's probably going to be some animals around. The sheep are my favorite. Just little clouds with a U head attached to them and then two little ears sticking out. Cows are fun too. Just two little ears, a U head, and a bigger oval body. And then you can throw in little horns and a tail on there too. Now chickens or turkeys, or I guess any kind of bird at this scale can be a little tricky. Not as in like it's hard to draw, but keeping them simple and also smaller can be a little harder. I just made a little pointed beak head, circle with a V on it, a round body with a tail coming out of it, and then two little dash legs at the bottom. There's lots of other fun stuff you can add to your farm maps. A well is just two circles with some radiating lines dividing the stones. A cart is a simple angular U shape, like a rectangle missing one side, and then some boards across it, and then some extra little rectangle shapes stuck on the outside to look like cartwheels. Barrels and crates are really, really easy and a great way to spread clutter around your farm. Just little circles and squares, and you can use a thinner pen to ink some of the interior wood lines if you like that look. I think keeping your icons simple like this is absolutely the way to go. If you need some other icons I haven't covered here, just grab a scrap sheet of paper and try drawing what makes sense. Just keep in mind that you're representing the icon from the top down and you want to keep it really simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. Pathways can just be broken up lines, and a trough that the animals you've drawn are eating out of or drinking out of is just a rectangle. If you need more help, I have this zine called Flick Silverpen's Guide to Drawing Cities. It's in my online shop. I know it says drawing cities, but also all of the stuff in here can be applied to drawing farms. And now let's finish up by inking this postcard farm map. I'm using a size 10 and a size 8 micron pen for this. There's a link in the description to these pens, and I'm just inking on a regular old sheet of white copy paper. You can use any sort of pen you want as long as it makes a nice line on top of your pencil drawing. I think that's the main thing to keep in mind when picking out tools, just that the pencil and the pens work together on the paper that you're using. As long as that stuff's working, you're good to go. Now this map is really simple because it's just a quick one-shot adventure, basically like a 6-room dungeon if you want to think of it that way. This is one of 5 other postcard adventures that come with the Dragon Town and the Darkness Below book and box set. You can pre-order all of that stuff from the link in the description. And the whole Dragon Town adventure takes place in this valley full of magical apple farms and then all the other crazy stuff that's going on underground. This little add-on is just a fun way for the players to acquire their own farm as a sort of home base for the rest of the campaign. So the idea is once the players explore and figure out what's going on with this farm, then a GM can hand them the postcard and they have it for the rest of the campaign. There's some fun little things going on that I don't exactly want to spoil in this video. I finished the map up by taking a photo of the drawing and bringing it into Photoshop. I cleaned up the line work a little bit and added a layer of gray tone, and there we have it, the secret of Sherwood Farmstead. Let me know what you think of this little farm postcard down in the comments, and I hope this video inspired you to draw your own fantasy farm map. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!